Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call a meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for doing that.
Make a note, we have two absences, Don and Jerry.
Yeah, I just saw him pull up.
Okay.
We'll go. Order of business is, number one item is approval of minutes. The regular meeting minutes of July 20th, 2023 were provided for review. I need a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of July 20th, 2023 as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
The motion passed. Audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Please come up and state your name and address. Name and address.
I'm in healing empowered, so y'all have to forgive me. I do relapse very well though. I live at Covington Woods Loop, Covington Woods Apartments, which I understand they are trying to acquire at Covington Woods 2, and there are some very big concerns I have from living there. On the first floor, you have mainly people who are handicapped or who are on Social Security who live there. And we can't take stairs or things like that. And we have a problem. We've had several problems. One of them has been with our thermostats. And I will submit this for you all to look at. I have a two-bedroom apartment. I had a $602.21 electric bill. The woman across from me had one for over $700. The woman over her had one for over $600. And those are the only people I asked. So, except for one up over me who said he hadn't had a problem yet. So, I had called the housing authority and talked to Andrea Cox about it, who is in charge of that for the state. And I explained to her what was going on. And she called them up and they said, well, they had some problems and they needed to replace a majority of thermostats and that they were expensive. I learned from a source that wants to be anonymous that the thermostats would have to be rewired and be at a cost of like $800 each. And it was a majority of the apartments that would need them. And what that they were going to do that within 2 weeks. That was 2 months ago. And there's still nothing. They accused me of using my emergency heat. This is a June bill. I don't think I have my heat on. I don't think anybody has heat on during May and June and like that. When the last time I was in the office paying my bill, just a couple of weeks ago, for my apartment, which has gone up every year. They're supposed to be rent reduced. Mine has risen $50 every year to where I'm paying over $800 a month now. And that's very hard. I'm seeing more Meals on Wheels deliver to apartments on the first floor now. And I think that's a shame that, our rent keeps going up and we're not getting repairs. And I would invite you all to drive around there, but you need to be careful of the potholes. I personally believe that the reason why these things are not being addressed is because that they want to keep their funding to purchase this land and everything to build a Covington Woods 2. And they aren't taking care of Covington Woods 1. I was screamed at. I can tell the difference. The only hearing I do have is a tiny bit in this ear, and it's hypersensitive. And the manager began screaming at me and yelling that I was using a heat pump, and that's why I had a $602 electric bill. And there's a difference between somebody talking loud and somebody screaming and waving their hands, because of their facial and body language says a whole lot. It says a whole lot. The other thing is, and I really want to thank the Lansing Police Department and Detective Lynn, is on our back building, which you cannot see from the street, we had a huge drug problem. And I'm not talking about nickel and dime bags. That's what it started out with. And they kept backing in next to my car. And I just sat out there on my porch, and after 4 days, 4 nights, they never came back to doing that. But we're talking about, I gave pictures of duffel bags being brought up to a person who lives there, who I don't believe is on a lease, but is still living there, which is wrong. And we're talking about bags like this and all being brought up to the apartments. And then we would have, the night after he would come back, we would have 15-minute traffic. And we're not talking about little cars or anything like that. We're talking about, these were expensive SUVs. They were Infinities. They were $70,000 to $80,000 vehicles. BMW, whatever. I accidentally walked out on my porch one night when one of them was apparently waiting for the transaction from upstairs to downstairs in my stairwell. And they shined their brights on me, and someone held a laser out of the window, and it hit my shoulder, and I knew what kind of laser that was, because my son had showed me and told me to be very careful, because they were using them to blind people in the 2020 riots and all. And I also had my lights on in my kitchen one morning, fixing my coffee. I was standing at the bar, and there was a man who stood for about 5 minutes like this outside my door, looking straight in at me. And when I decided that was enough of that, I went toward the door, and he took off running. So I feel like in the case with these thermostats and electric bills, I kind of compare it to if you're driving your car and someone is behind you and they have no insurance and they have faulty brakes or bad tires and they can't stop. When you stop at a light, they don't stop, and they run into you and total your car. What's going to happen? He's going to lose his license until he pays off your vehicle. We don't get it. We never get any payback for bad bills. When the temperature has been in the 50s outside and I went to turn my heat on to 72, it wouldn't cut off. My thermostat said 88, and I had to shut it off at the circuit breaker. And it's not just me, but a lot of people are afraid to say anything because they're afraid of repercussions for it, and I'm not afraid of them. I'm just not going to put up with it, especially when it's a lot of elderly people who are on Social Security and handicapped. on the ground floors. It is absolutely wrong. They can't take care of Covington Woods. Why do they need another one? And they keep raising our rent. How are they? I mean, I'm paying well over $800 for a 2-bedroom.
What was your rent when you first started, ma'am? What was your rent when you first started, when you first lived there? What was your rent when you first moved into Covington Woods?
$725,
And what is it now?
$825.
And how long have you lived there?
I've been there. This is my
Third year. Okay, thank you.
It's gone up $50 the last couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, council, any questions? We good?
Oh,
I appreciate you coming.
thank you.
And talking. Thank you. Okay, Rob, did you have something? Come on.
Good evening, Rob Gaslin, Cottonwood Drive here in Lansing, and with the fire district. So the intent was to have the chief here tonight and do something that we call fire ground development, and how that's resourced from the governing body and leadership perspective. He couldn't be here tonight due to some critical professional development that's going on down in Wichita this week. So going to change the order, going to do a short little recap tonight, and then we'll come back in 2 weeks. My request is to have the chief be on the agenda for 2 weeks from now on the fire ground operations piece. It's got some PowerPoint slides and worth your time, and I think it would be better if it wasn't open mic and instead be on the agenda. So that's my request. Recapping briefly, so the first time I was here, what I said, my goal is to inform, and hopefully you've felt that that's been happening. I mentioned that I have not sensed that the current board has been in conflict, particularly the 3 people you've sent to the fire district have not been in conflict with the city. There's been no feedback to the contrary that we're doing things that you don't want us to do. And I mentioned that I think we've been doing the things you want, for instance, lowering the temperature and adjusting operations in little ways to provide good governance. So the one exception I mentioned was organizational friction. Sometimes that's inherent. An example of that would be the fire inspections, the fire marshal duty. The city and a business leader might want to be leaning in one direction, and the standards or the law might say, can't do that. That's organizational friction, and good people, we have good people here, work through that, but that would be an exception to that. Bottom line is, I feel like we are working for you, and I mentioned that if the mayor ever said, hey, time for me to go somewhere else, that's what I would do. And I think it would be that easy, probably far easier to send me away than it is to send any of you away. So the next week, I mentioned the 2 things that I had come into this position with some concerns about. One, the business of being non-elected and dealing with taxes. It is what it is. That's what I was handed. And we've worked hard to counter that through changes in bylaws, public engagement, and accountability, to include the accountability that I just mentioned. Hey, Rob, go somewhere else. So that's in place. Also talked about the 9 mil cap to our budget. It's a statutory cap. And I mentioned the empirical success. Fire District 1, under a series of boards, to include yours, have found ways to live within that. And it's an effective counter to any stovepiping that might happen, where we're not competing between different commodity areas in a city government. Doesn't matter. We're still capped by 9 mils, and it turns out 9 mils has been pretty close to right on, I think. The third week I was here, talked about the real elephant in the room, and that's the manning the force problem. I mentioned that it's not just a local thing. Far from it. It's a national thing. It's been building for years, if not decades, and it's getting worse and worse. I talked about the economy of force measures that are in place that we do to try to mitigate the problem, doing more with less. talked about some of the trends, the decline in volunteerism, the challenges with career paid positions, and the standards that are out there for manning. I mentioned that the surveys that are done nationally of firefighters and firefighting organizations, along with our own, tell us pretty much the same thing. In particular, our employees who do choose to leave are not saying Lansing evil or anything like that, but they are telling us that size matters. They are concerned about the impact of a smaller organization on their careers. That's what they're telling us. Finally, on that week, I mentioned that while we're not quite at the laws of physics level, that the significant currents that we're seeing are at the riptide level, and I'm almost ready to declare it a law of physics based on what's going on nationally on employment. The next week, talk more about manning the force, but this time about how we mitigate the problem as best we can, how we do more with less. Talked about some of the tools and techniques that we have. The auto aid and the mutual aid are a way of, in military speak, interlocking our fields of fire. There I go, using the wrong word, fire. And overtime as a tool, but one you have to be careful of. And the really big one, and this is not me advocating for it, just saying that this is what people or organizations are doing, regional consolidation. It's happening more and more, in part, not exclusively, but in part as a reaction to the manning the force problem. Then the fifth week is here, readiness. How do we know something will work when we need it? I talked about the measures that are out there, and measures not just of the fire district, but of the community, its readiness to suppress fires. And significantly, the Insurance Services Officer, ISO's public protection classification, and then we talked about the community ratings that we have here specifically for Lansing, as well as for the fire district as a whole. Finally, last time we were here 2 weeks ago, we talked about our strategic planning process, the ends, ways, and means things, tied it to the budget. We walked through our budget process, but that strategic planning process is not just for budget. It dictates how we set up for training, our long-range planning, recruiting and retention, everything that we do. We try to follow that particular model. And then I used as an example our lack of an aerial capability and how we use the planning model to mitigate the risk as we work toward a solution. And then the last thing that we did 2 weeks ago, we had the chief take a look at the draft 2024 budget and a few highlights from that. So just breaking new ground for a minute longer, and then that's it. As we do the strategic planning process, early in that process, we do what kind of a wonky term, do an environmental scan. That might not be a familiar term, but I think the outputs of that are the SWOT, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Interestingly, I think that in the past, it's been the habit of governing bodies, fire district, council, the townships, when they do their own SWOT analysis, is to view each other as threats. And I saw that happening before I was with the fire district, and we're working hard to avoid that now. We're not lawyering up or doing any of those kind of things. Threats is supposed to mean something else in strategic planning and not each other. So the good news is I think that that's working well. The problem for us is that as we do our SWOT analysis, our environmental scan, we're supposed to be training our thoughts on, maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now. If fire district number one has, for instance, a 12-month horizon, it changes our perspective, and it might change what we would do. That is a challenge for us. It's for us to manage, but I want you to be aware that that matters to us. And would we take a different action if we knew we were only going to be in business, as it were, for only 12 months as opposed to 12 years? I don't know. The answer is possibly yes. It is a challenge for us. And if you accept that, then also think about the challenges for individual firefighters, especially career firefighters at the middle and the senior levels. These are the folks that have to think out easily a year out as to whether they want to continue in a particular direction that they're going, or if they want to go in a different direction. And if so, if they do want to make a change, they've got to make a move within a year or so to start making that kind of a plan. So those are the challenges that we have, and we're working through them. Individual firefighters are working through them. You just need to know that that's out there. Finally, a gauge the kind of thinking that's going on by the questions asked. Might just have been the forum, but most of the questions you've asked have been encyclopedic, and there's nothing wrong with that. What does ISO stand for? That kind of thing. A tougher question higher up on the critical thinking spectrum might be, what does Fire District Number 1's analysis show to be the impacts of Lansing proposals on various ISO ratings? That'd be a great question. You haven't asked that, I won't answer that here. If another forum like a work session or the group that you guys are going to be in, that may be the place where you would ask those kinds of questions. And we will give you our unvarnished thoughts on those kinds of things. Staff from the city, as good as it is, and I think you have a very good staff, probably can't answer those kinds of questions very well. That's not their level of expertise, but we are available to help with those kinds of things. So thank you for listening in our little summer struggle sessions. Be back in 2 weeks with the chief. Again, the request to be on the agenda to talk about fire ground operations. And that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, new business. Ordinance number 1098, sewer and solid waste assessments pursuant to Chapter 16, Utilities, Section 16.116 and 16.209, ECHO. The City Council is to be presented with a list of delinquent accounts and the customer's information. Upon adoption of the City Council and subsequent publication in Leavenworth Times, this ordinance shall constitute a lien against the real estate for which services is supplied. Right now, 52 properties with a total delinquency of $73,330.39 are listed in the ordinance. Staff does not submit this ordinance for assessment until August 25th, 2023, so residents are given the opportunity to be removed from the ordinance by setting up a payment plan with the city before that date. So I need a motion to adopt ordinance number 1098 for assessment of delinquent sewer and trash bills.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Sure.
How many of these addresses operate as a business? It's a loaded question. I know there's at least one on there. 707 Holiday Drive operates as a daycare under a special use permit. She doesn't pay her bill. So if I don't pay my bill to her daycare, does she watch my child? No. So why do we allow her to get away with this? I don't understand that.
Because we can't turn her on.
Well, you can pull a special use permit if
You can pull the special use permit if you
Yeah,
want.
you can yank her special use permit anytime you want.
right. I mean, but that would be a discussion or
Huh?
a topic that we might want to consider, like as a
work session.
well, I mean, something that we want to make as kind of a policy decision. Like businesses, we're not going to let you just, you know what I mean?
Say, if you're a business, you can't be delinquent in.
Well, you can, but
Well, you can make
if
it
you have a
up.
special use permit, then your special use permit is at risk.
Right.
If you're delinquent in your
You
trash.
can just add it as a requirement.
Right.
That you got to be current with all city regulations.
I mean, we can
ordinances.
make a change to that.
And you can add that as an addendum to the current special use permit?
Yeah, that's something that could be done, I believe. So
I'm good with that.
we have to double
Yeah, I mean,
check.
if that's
Well,
an
yeah, we have to double check, make
Yeah,
sure.
we'll have to
all
work
legalities,
on
but-
the solution for it, but I'm sure we
You
can work
used to
on
be,
it.
you used to have to reapply for a special use permit.
Right, and
And we went away from that.
yeah.
Like every 5 years?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't go away from it totally.
It's just like
We didn't.
They were just extending it so you weren't up here every year.
Right.
Reviewing them, right?
We'll have to look, but my recollection as I sit here, I thought the conditional use was 5, and then the special use was 1 and can be brought back if there were complaints in the community. Again, I'm just going off the top of my head, so I could be wrong on that.
I would consider this a complaint from the community.
Yeah, I'm complaining.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
What else you got?
Yes, I'm done.
Some of these are very large. Are these just year after year after year adding up?
No, these are, I mean, if you look like probably 95% of these people are on the assessment list every year.
Right.
It depends on the amount of their bill, because everybody's bill is based on their sewer usage. The smaller amounts that you see are probably just trash only. The bigger ones, every month, 10% interest is added to the balance. So it builds pretty quickly, especially if you have a $100 bill every month. That can add up pretty quickly. So
And so we try to work with them and set up a payment plan.
we send out delinquencies quarterly. We send out a notice to them. We'll publish this. We've also sent a letter specifically telling them that this is, we're going through this procedure right now. Please contact us. If you are, if you want to get on a payment plan with us, we will work with you to do that.
So do most people that do the payment plan, do they follow through? Or is that something they just use to get out of it for now?
No, most people who set up one will follow through. We do have, occasionally we have people that fall off of it. And then at that point, we don't wait another year. We send them to our collection agency and go that route. I will say doing the third-party collection agency is not as, you don't get quite the return that you do putting a lien on a property. So
Thank you.
You don't get the quick return.
exactly, yes.
The property is like,
And these are
you
only
don't get anything until they sell it.
these are only property owners. We cannot assess property if there is a renter living in that property. So,
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Motion passed. Item number 3 is ordinance 1098, weed removal assessments. Pursuant to Chapter 8, Health and Welfare, Section 7, weeds, the City Council is to be presented with a list of properties and owner's information of those who failed to pay the weed removal fees. Upon adoption of the City Council and subsequent publication 11 more times, this ordinance shall constitute a lien against the real estate for which the service is supplied. So I need a motion to adopt ordinance 1099 for assessment of delinquent fees for weed removal.
So move. Second.
Any discussion? Jesse?
Does Burger King not qualify for this list?
So the issue that was brought up recently, they had mowed it on the 10th day. They had their own crew.
Oh, they had their own crew.
It was their own crew do it. We'd been communicating with the property owner out of Colorado, and I think that was one of the things that delayed it. So
I thought the city hired JD to clean it up.
we had somebody on standby because they literally did wait until the 10th day. But we joke around about that. That's what,
Right.
unfortunately, that's what a lot of people
Okay.
do.
Answers my question. Thank you.
Anybody else? Dan?
Yeah, I'm just curious, what does being put on the chronic nuisance list mean?
What are you looking at?
Well, it says the second abatement, we'll put this property on a chronic nuisance list. What does that mean?
I think it means we can mow it sooner than we normally would. I'd need to double check that though, but I know, I think if it's someone's first warning, I think we give them the full 10 days. And then the second time, I think we do it faster, I think, but I can double check on that.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else on this one? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Motion passed. Item number 4 is condemnation resolution B2 2023, enabling action for the city project 2021-04 McIntyre sanitary sewer interceptor project. This is the first enabling steps to pursue condemnation, if necessary, of interest in property, permanent and temporary easements necessary for the McIntyre sanitary sewer interceptor project. The resolution clears the way to later enact a condemnation ordinance if needed. It is prudent to enact the resolution at this time so there aren't any delays in completing the project. Every reasonable effort has been made to obtain all easements through negotiations. So I need a motion to enact resolution number B2, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So part of this has to do with the next one, number 5, does it not?
Yep.
Yeah. So if we vote this in, that puts number 5 voted in without any kind of deep discussion on.
No.
We're
I'm
saying-
not sure
No,
I'd
no,
say
no.
Are
that.
we just going to vote
No,
the whole thing in?
this is-
Detail number 5.
This is just to get permission to do the combination. You still have to do the negotiation
Yeah,
for all that.
we haven't even sent out letters yet.
Okay.
We haven't
All right,
started.
I just want to make sure that,
Yeah.
number 4.
No, that's why it was
Like the entire
first. Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I heard you say that negotiations has been, all
Yeah, that's what I
efforts
heard.
has
No.
been.
No, I said this just allows.
No.
Yeah.
When you read that, you
Oh.
said has been made. It should be will be made. I just want to make sure that, because we're on basically a record here, I want to make sure that somebody doesn't interpret that to mean that the negotiations have even started yet. So it should be will be made.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Every reasonable effort will be made to obtain all easements through negotiation. Did I say have been?
Yes.
Okay.
You said has been made.
Well, then I didn't read it correctly. My apologies. The motion still is the same. It's the ordinance.
Mayor, you are entitled to a mistake.
Yeah. Well, one a year. Anybody else have anything in there? I think there was audience participation on this one, so.
No, but I do need to add something I forgot. I forgot to tell you why these bills are so high. I had my thermostat totally off.
Yeah, you would have to have.
It's a separate subject. You can't talk about it now.
You can tell me. You can tell me after.
After,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I will pass that information to the council.
okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please come up and state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is John Perry, and I'm representing my mom, who lives at 121 West Gilman Road. And the current proposal for the sewer line, and first of all, I'd like to say Tony's been unbelievable to work with. He's been great communicating. I'm not upset with him or anything. I just want to make sure that my dad passed away a year and a half ago, and I think Tony, you guys met with him about 2.5, 3 years ago about this sewer line coming down the pike. And my dad was pretty adamant about it going the front or the back. I understand there's floodway and it's in the flood zone, but the way it is, he didn't want him to come across the middle, and I think that was the initial proposal. And that's what it currently is the sewer line's currently running through the middle of our property, the way it's been drawn out, the last drawings that Tony sent me. And there's a couple other options on there, which for some reason those don't work. And I'm not an expert on this, but I just want to make sure, we feel like the property currently is a residence. It's my mom's residence. It's about 5 acres, but it is zoned commercial. So I just want to make sure all efforts are considered prior to making a final decision, this being finalized, and just so we would like it to go in the front or the back. And again, I understand the floodway and all that good stuff, but we're more than willing to work with the city. We want to work with you guys, but I just have to make sure that that's heard from us as a family. The land is going to be passed down to my sister and myself. When my mom, she's 79. She'll probably live till she's 109. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out. And then the other thing is the soccer park, and Tony's been great with this, working with the city. He sent something in the email. The soccer park that is adjacent to my mom's property, the parking lot, when it rains, there's no catchment for it. And so all that water drains on to our property, and it's eroding the land. And my mom and dad have lived there since 1990, I believe. So 30-some years. So anyway, Tony mentioned that to me, and he's already put that in the email. And I'm hoping we can just get all this worked out in one fell swoop. So
Okay.
it's the best. But I understand. I just want to make sure it's the best for both parties, the city and for us.
All right.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
I guess one thing that I'd say, I know Mr. Perry and Tony had been communicating, and I think we passed along all of those suggestions to the engineers. I mean, it's like a $140,000 difference if we do what you're proposing. So, I mean, it's a pretty substantial difference, and there's already utilities in that area. So, I mean, when we're working on that sewer line, I mean, if there's already a crew out there, that would be the time to work on the drainage issue. But I do want to let you know, I mean, you were heard,
Yeah.
your proposals were passed on, and the other thing to keep in mind too, engineers don't just look at things for free. Like, we spent $3,000 vetting your ideas. So I just want to let you know that
And I
you were
appreciate
heard.
that, and,
Yeah.
and that wasn't conveyed, and I don't know that that's his job to convey that to me, but it kind of just felt like, hey, this is what we're doing, and a decision was already made, but that's the first I've heard that it'd be an extra $140,000. So, but anyway, if there's any other options that are possible, we just like for those to be considered. Okay?
Okay. No,
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
Will that be crossing the driveway or not?
I'm sorry.
Will it be crossing the driveway?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It has to.
I just see the
Driveway.
driveway.
I have maps of it if you want.
Yeah, I'm looking at the property.
You guys have the property?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The
You have
alternate
the-
alignments. Yeah.
Well, right now, we're talking, what John's talking, and we're talking is number 5. We need to finish number 4, Mr. Mayor, and then jump to number 5, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
In your policy.
Yeah, you really are.
Yeah, I'm just trying to focus on,
Okay, wait a minute.
so number 4.
We had a motion and a second,
number
but I have
4
not
action-
called roll.
The number 4 action is what,
Well, no, he needed to speak that prior to number 5.
yeah, yeah.
So he has to speak now, or we jump in there.
Forever hold on.
Because, you know what I'm saying? It's,
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we have that opportunity for
Okay.
him to cover it. You know, and if I may,
This, okay, well, I don't, were you going to talk this, the options or anything? No? Okay,
It's probably most appropriate to speak at the next agenda item
okay. About this part.
about
Yeah.
easements. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to hold off until the next?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have anything on this one? Okay, we have a motion, a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
yes,
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Item number 5 is easement acquisition, McIntyre Sanitary Sewer Interceptor Project. The next step in the McIntyre Interceptor Project is to acquire the necessary easements. Staff provided a summary table of the needed parcels, along with the values of the appraisals. While some of these improvements occur in existing easements or adjacent to the road right-of-way. Excuse me? Hey. Let me finish. While some of these improvements occur in the existing easement or adjacent to the right-of-way, the new easements necessitate the removal of fences, gates, vegetation, screening, and dozens of mature trees. The opinion of the just compensation for the temporary easements, permanent easements, and cost to cure items as determined by Valbridge Property Advisors is $218,987. Okay, so I need a motion to authorize the staff and Skeen Consulting to complete easement activities for the McIntyre Sanitary Sewer Interceptor Project.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Now discussion, please.
all right, I'll start. Okay,
Yeah.
so if you move the screen down a little bit so you can see more of option 1, I believe the concern, Mr. Mayor, and Tim and Tony, is we have a line drawn across the top from the parking lot there, diagonal to where it says option 2, and then it joins down the purple line to the green for proposed 9G sewer. And I'm just trying to wonder why we could not do that versus look at option 1, which is literally in the front yard. I mean, we're talking,
Do we have a pointer or
I mean,
anything?
There is one up there.
I'm just trying to figure out why would we want to
You're going further north. You got a lot
put
of
a,
pipes.
but we're going south with it.
So from the yellow dot,
Yeah.
going up to option 2, where it says option 2, that's extra pipe that you would have to
And then
pay
scroll
for.
scroll
No,
up a
I
little.
like coming.
So option
Scroll-
2.
There we
is
go.
not there.
See how it's coming? See how the GIS location and that pipeline's running the green? I don't know why we couldn't go. I
Option
mean, where does it
Tony,
start?
Tony wanted to
I'm
just
trying to figure
explain
out
the
how to use
options.
this technology here. Do it. Do it. No, the little red line. Okay.
Option one.
Okay. This is the existing sewer that we're going to connect to.
Wait, say it again.
This is the existing sewer that's already there.
Okay.
This is 9G sewer that runs south to McIntyre, which is part of the project.
Right.
Our original option was option 1, which was to cut straight across the property. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. It's in the floodplain. Almost bifurcates the property almost directly in half. When we met with Mr. Perry a while ago, he said, hey, that's a no-go. What other options are there? So we looked at option 2, which was to go from this location straight north and tie into that manhole. There is currently 2 parallel Magellan gas mains that run through this cut area. And there is a vertical alignment issue with the location where our gravity sewer needs to go and where the current Magellan pipelines are. Sewers don't like to go up and down hills, they like to go in a straight line, and gas companies don't answer to cities. So that was a no-go. So we looked at option number 3, which is the red line, and tying in further north. Upon GBA's investigation, it's my understanding that there's a 24-inch water main that runs down K7 and also a line that feeds this area, where again there is a vertical alignment issue. Michigan don't like to go up and downhill. A fourth option not shown on this map was, since we owned Kelly Grove Park, we talked about moving the sewer over to Kelly Grove. We already own the property, it would be the least intrusive. However, if you're familiar with that terrain, Kelly Grove Park drops down several feet from the roadway, and it too is in the floodway. And for us to make grade on this project, the sewer line would essentially have to be laid on top of the ground. That's bad engineering, and it just won't get approved because sewer pipes will float, and it does happen. I've seen it with my own eyes. So those are the options that we looked at, and we internally settled on option number 1. After I met with Mrs. Perry's son-in-law on site and her, I explained these to them, and then I was in contact with Mr. Perry. And Josh and I visited the site together to talk about all the issues. And he had suggested that go behind the home and then back up. However, if you pull up the third exhibit, Ken.
Quick question, Tony, before you start again. How deep will that line be in the ground if it runs across mobile property?
I can't say off the top of my head, but I can get you.
Ballpark.
If it runs on top of the ground?
If in the middle of the property.
Option 1.
Option 1. If it runs through the middle of his property, their property, how deep will the pipe be in the ground?
Several feet.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but it'll be in the ground.
Okay.
So as we looked at the proposed option from Mr. Perry of going this way, you can see that this is the home site, which is in the 500-year flood. The blue area is the 100-year flood, and the hatched area is the floodway. It's really difficult to try and put a sewer line right in between here and shoehorn everything, because the last thing we want to do is disturb any of the floodway, or at least as little as possible. You know, Mother Nature put that stream there years and years ago. The last thing we want to do is disturb that stream, especially when it would impact, or has the potential to impact, a bridge on K7 Highway, which is the north-south busiest traveled roadway in the state of Kansas. That was one reason. The other reason is the loss of vegetation along this project corridor could have unknown consequences and unknown risks for the city and the property owners that are, that are living there. We just felt that it was not the appropriate location to put a sewer, given all those factors. So again, we went back to option 1. Ken, if you can show the other option that was proposed. This was another option that was explored. However, sewers don't like to make U-turns. In order for us to facilitate getting that sewer to turn that corner, we would have, because we can't lay manholes at more acute angles than 90 degrees, because again, water doesn't like to make U-turns. there's no way for us to come this far north to parallel the Magellan pipeline and still make that angle work without either bringing the sewer flatter over here and then turning the corner, which doesn't really give us anything other than, what's already there. So those are the options we looked at. I've met with several folks at GBA. We've met internally with Tim, our city engineer, community development director, looking at the numbers. If the city chose to put in this option, the delta between option one and this option is about $145,000 more because of the additional pipe, engineering, geotech, et cetera. The uncalculated risk that I think is more important is what could happen in the future to that property and what the disturbance of that streamway or that floodway would be going forward. And I can't quantify that, and I don't think you're ever going to find anybody to quantify that. But cottonwood trees and vegetation hold a lot of soil to keep it from eroding. And you remove that, it's going to take a significant amount of time to restore that.
Tony, I really appreciate the time, the thought you put into this, and this wasn't a decision made willy-nilly.
Oh, no.
The detail.
I really, and your explanation has been excellent, so thank you.
Thank you.
Tony, based on option one with that blue line going across, that's pretty close to if the resident wanted to build another house or another thing, there's plenty, because you're talking how many yards on each side of that blue line would be prohibitive of any kind of weight structure being across there.
The permanent easement that we are seeking for this interceptor project is 20 feet. So we 10 foot on either side
10 foot.
of the pipeline.
So basically a basketball goal on each side.
Yeah, essentially. Now, the temporary construction easement is, I want to say it's 90 or 100 feet through there, just to give us room to work. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's 9,000 feet of pipe here, so forgive me for not knowing every detail. But and Mr. Perry, when we did discuss, future options for the site, he had mentioned about potentially splitting that lot, doing some other type of development on the front half. I think the natural line break where our option number one is shown provides for the ability going forward, should something be built in the floodplain with the appropriate permitting and all of the things that go along with that, and to include flood insurance, provides a natural break point for a potential property line break, which would serve as ultimately, their temporary setback or their, front yard and backyard setback for easements. So, but I don't own the property, so I can't speak to future land use.
So what do we do, Tim, if we do something like this, like put one of these sewage lines across the front yard of someone's home? Do we do any kind of beautification towards helping assist when we're done, or do we just leave?
I think we do our best to
seed it, sod it.
Yeah, we
try to get the. Is that what we do?
Normally, we would reseed it, right?
As part of the easement acquisition process, all of those terms and conditions are spelled out and put on paper. If a specific resident wants 2 maple trees, we can negotiate that, but they're also being paid for the current trees that are on the property. So it's been my practice that if someone wants their fence replaced, or they want a specific tree to be planted, or some other type of vegetation, that becomes part of the negotiation, and it gets put into the final dollar value that's provided to the property owner. Then when the project is over, they can go out and they can hire their own contractor to plant the trees of their choosing at the time of their choosing, and then they are responsible to maintain them, water them, stake them, fertilizer, the whole bit. With trees, that's the best way to go, and the second thing is with sod. Everybody wants sod. The last thing you want is sod, because you have to water it religiously. And trying to get water trucks in properties to water sod, it just makes a bigger mess. So we'll use a nice turf blend, and it'll get hydroseeded. And typically hydroseeding has some good results, provided Mother Nature cooperates. But if it doesn't take, we come back and we reseed it. I mean, that's why a temporary easement lasts for 2 years, so that we have access to that property for a duration of time. Should there be any settling, should a manhole shift, should their grass not grow, there's a low spot, something sinks. I mean, that's why we set those TCEs up like that. Did that answer all your questions?
Answer all the questions.
Okay, thank you.
This house, does it face north?
Yes.
So when you say the family wanted to sit either in the front or the back, that is the front, is it not?
That is the front of that home, but it's not the front of the property.
So,
The front of the
so
property
he was
is
talking
actually,
about the northernmost edge of the property,
yes.
which is the sharp turn.
Yes, well, basically, up in this area here.
It'd have been great if option 2 would have worked.
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, believe me, we looked at, we don't like to destroy people's property or tear up things that don't need to be tore up. I mean, that's why we do our due diligence and go through this exercise.
Obvious that was
Anybody else have any other discussion?
So, as a result of this, once this is done, I'm meeting on Monday with my easement consultant, Alan. He and I are going to discuss the project. He'll put together all the offer letters, all the appropriate forms, copies of documents that are needed, et cetera, for signature. Those will get mailed to all the property owners, and then we'll have sit-downs if we need to with them. But over half the folks that I've talked to already are already on board. So fingers crossed and knock on wood, we should be smooth sailing.
And that happens with you all, Tim, Tony, I mean, that.
Tony and our consultant.
I keep him in the loop, but he's got plenty of other stuff to worry about, so I try and minimize the bothering him.
But he's a big boy.
Anything else? Tony, you done, or? Oh, good?
I have nothing more, Mayor. Thank
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Call a roll.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Motion passed. Employment contract addendum. Subsequent to the contract employees' annual employment review by the City Council conducted on July 20th, 2023, the parties agreed to an addendum of the City Administrator's employment agreement. So I need a motion to authorize the mayor's signature for addendum number 7 to the City Administrator's contract and provide a financial incentive based on the results of the performance evaluation.
We'll move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Motion passed. Reports. So any department heads got anything? Tony?
We received the draft wastewater master plan update last week. I met with GBA this week to go through that draft. We're making some revisions and refining everything, and they will be on the September work session to brief the council on their findings, recommendations, and what they know.
Okay. Anyone else? Tim? I'm sorry, city attorney.
Another report, Mayor.
Tim?
So one thing I wanted to show you guys, we had an employee make this with discarded currency, and he had agreed to donate it to the city to be raffled off for the mayor's Christmas tree. It was, what's that?
Oh, I was bidding on it already, sorry.
Well, it's actually really impressive. It's Chris Bennett's in the wastewater department. Just a really creative, neat guy. He's the one who's a lot of his music is on Channel 2. If you guys are Channel 2 watchers, but really, if you look at it, you kind of realize how much time it took him because there's not a lot of red in American currency. It's only in
the backs of $10 bills.
Who is number 15?
Yeah, it was number 15 for the Chiefs, right? But so there's only red on the back of $10 bills. So I mean, he had to go through bags and bags of discarded currency. So we'll be selling, I think, $1 raffle tickets at city events coming up, and the winner of that will get this cool picture of Patrick Mahomes, and the proceeds will go to the mayor's Christmas tree. So
You're the mayor. It's Christmas tree.
so we're thankful to Chris Bennett for that, and hopefully that can raise some money for a good cause. So
That's amazing.
Yeah, cool.
you guys really should look at it afterward. It's once you get close to it, it's very impressive. So we'd spoken a little bit about the Landell water line along Town Center. They had their bid opening last night. Lineweaver Construction was the low bid at about $390,000. What we had discussed with Landell a while back was them contributing about 23% to go toward that. So I don't have that final number yet in case there's change orders and engineering costs and things like that. But the final construction number as of right now is $390,000. And like I said, we had spoken about using those ARPA funds for that. We've got a little over $800,000 of those federal dollars left. We have to expend those by the end of the year next year. So after this, we'll have a little over $400,000 left of that. So, but we're excited about this. This would service KCKCC. This would service the future tractor supply and other parcels in Town Center. So we're excited about that. So trees, a couple things on trees. That was kind of one of the topics of that last city council meeting. We did send out a letter and tried to make some phone calls to the property owner from the previous city council meeting. It sounds like in between the time from the last city council meeting and this city council meeting, the property did close. So I don't have that new property owner's information quite yet, but that's something that we'll review. At some point I might double check with you guys and get your opinion on that, because again, it would be a unique situation for us to do something like that to a property owner who just purchased the house.
The property owner that sold it probably didn't have to disclose the issue with the tree.
Well, in fairness to that person, it was closed out by the city because we felt like it was no longer a hazard. And again, I know that Ms. Ferguson disagreed with that, but that was the city's take at that time. So, but anyway, like I said, I might reach out to you guys or talk about it at a future meeting, because it is a unique situation where we'd be notifying someone who literally just purchased the property less than a week ago, and basically saying, hey, you need to abate this at a cost of fairly substantial. So, but we will double check on that and try to reach out to that person and see if they have any plans to remove it anyway. So, and also I know trees along that trail, I think in Ward 4, that's been a hot topic lately. We spoke about that briefly at the last meeting. I know I think a couple of you guys had also received questions about trees along the trail closer to the condotels area. So just want to affirm those trees were not removed by the city. Those trees were removed by Evergy because they were underneath that power line. When I spoke to condotels, I think it's their goal to plant new trees at some point. I think before Evergy did that, they spoke to condotels, and I think they gave condotels some ideas for trees in that area that wouldn't be obtrusive to power lines. So I think it is condotels' goal to plant more trees there. And also going further back on that trail, just affirming what we spoke about 2 weeks ago. We are going to do everything we can to retain as many of those trees as we can. We'll work with the property owner. A lot of those areas would be in the rear yard or side yard of those future lots. So in that sense, it might make sense for the property owner or the developer to keep those trees anyway, if it's in the backyard or side yard. So the one thing that's challenging though, and we have tentative plans, but he hasn't submitted an updated plat to us yet. We don't have those documents yet. So I know a lot of property owners and residents in that area, they want a firm, definitive, this tree's going, this tree's staying, this tree's going, this tree's staying, and we just don't have that right now because we don't have those final plans yet. But again, we are going to work with the developer and encourage him whenever possible to keep trees. So that's all I have. Yeah.
Do we know for sure that the cement part of the trail is in the center of the property that we own?
It veers in some places. So the actual right-of-way is 40 foot the entire way. But the trail, the actual concrete portion itself does veer. But on areas where it veers to the west, that means there's more of a buffer to the east. And when it veers to the east, that means there's more of a buffer to the west. But it's not, there's probably not that many places where it's directly in the center.
And I know you and I talked, just so the other councilman know.
Yeah.
That 40 foot doesn't start until north of the Woodland Hills HOA. The
Correct.
part of the trail that starts off of Holiday Drive
Yeah.
is an easement
Yes,
from the original developer of that subdivision.
correct.
Our property doesn't start until beyond that HOA.
That's exactly right. Yep, on Holiday and those, by those houses, that's in an easement. So it's technically private property, but in an easement, yeah.
And just so the other councilman knows, the houses up at Condotel, the trees that were cut down up at Condotels, there was 21 of them. 5 of each was on the Condotel property, no question about it. They were on the east side of the power lines. The other 16 were within 16 foot of the cement portion. So
If they were still probably pretty close to a power line, but
I mean,
Power lines.
they have an easement there, right? I mean,
yeah,
I-
Evergy has an easement. I mean, you know, even in your neck of the woods, along the back of our houses, there was an easement, and they just came in and cut trees like vertically, you know, so half the tree was cut off. So I mean, it's
I understand. It
Yeah.
killed one of my trees, and I
Yeah.
had to take it down. I understand. That's the way that they.
well, you got experience at dead trees. We got
again, it
hooked
was,
up with Tim.
my phone call with Condotels was really good though. I mean, they really do have, according to their manager, they really do have intentions of replanting a lot of those trees.
Can we ask them to work with our tree board to make sure that the species that's put in there is the right one?
Yeah, I could have Jason talk to her or coordinate something with her.
Yeah, maybe we can take a little bit of the workload off and work with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've already talked about that previously. Jason said some of those trees aren't trees that you want to actually be on a path.
Yep.
So when they die, we're going to replace them with something that's more conducive to a path, walking path. Okay, anything else, Tim?
Nope.
Okay, we'll go around the horn. Go to Dan first.
Well, Tim, thank you for all the legwork on the trees, trying to get the citizens answers that they were looking, even if they didn't like it. At least it was the truth. And Rob, thank you for coming in again. Appreciate the citizens coming in and lending to our meetings. Appreciate it. That's everything I have, Mayor.
All right, thanks. Dan Carey.
I have nothing, Mayor. I apologize for being late.
It's okay. I know you're stumping. So, Kevin.
Okay, thank you for coming up and speaking tonight. And Tony and Beth, thank you very much. And that's all I have.
Dean.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for all their work. I'm going to go back to the tree, and I want to remind everybody that Mrs. Ferguson was told by the city that the tree had to come down. She was originally told that. That creates a rub for me. And it was decided to go back and take a look at the tree, and it was decided it didn't need to be cut, but that information, as far as I can tell, was never relayed to her. So, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so on that topic, though, can we have, like, the fire department and our Parks and Rec guy go out and assess the tree again, or? I mean, the bottom line is, somebody made an assessment, I believe it was the fire department and our ordinance folks, who said it's not a threat anymore after the cut.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it either is or it isn't, right, and
That's
then we
true.
can go from there.
I
Why
think the
would you want
concern,
to leave that tree the way it is,
well,
regardless?
Well,
So there-
nobody wants to leave it there, but do you want to put that on the new property owner to take it down? I mean,
No,
that's the
absolutely not.
issue.
No.
And it's very expensive to take that size of a tree down, because you're talking bringing a crane in to lift.
And that was the thing, I think Matt did say that, and it's in an email where he said that. But again, I think he said that before the property owner had a $10,000 estimate. And rather than going to court and delaying it 3 weeks,
And
they made a decision to try to abate the hazard. So that's why it was done the way it was done.
And I contend that when the original decision was made, I don't think she was informed. She was told one thing, and that's not what happened. And I know we're going back years.
Is it possible that, I mean, it's possible Matt spoke to her, and maybe she doesn't remember it on the phone. I mean, I guess I'll say too, again, the neighboring property owner's story was pretty different from hers. But I mean,
that doesn't surprise me. So I would almost like to see, if we're going to talk to anybody, I get where she thinks if that tree falls, it's going to hit her house. It already has.
Yep.
No doubt about that. If we could just get somebody with the right equipment to get to the top of that tree, drop a 100-foot tape, and say, if it falls, this is where it's going to land. 10 feet from your property, 20 feet from your property, or if it falls right, it's going to catch the corner of your house again. To me, that would be the most logical thing.
Right. Go out and make another assessment.
And measure it.
Yeah.
Not look at it and say, if it falls this way, it's going to do this. How much of the tree is left? How close is that tree to her?
Yeah, and that's what
and
I
I would
recommended.
imagine the new property owner might be pretty open to something like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
even if it, if the assessment says it's going to fall 30 feet and it lands 5 feet on her property, well, maybe you cut 10 feet off if you can afford that. You know what I mean? It's still a compromise.
Yeah,
So,
that's why,
yeah.
there's got to be, it doesn't have to always be if or.
Right. But we got to wait for the new property owner,
There's-
though, right now. It's
There's
kinda-
always, generally, is a sweet spot in the middle, and that might be it.
I have a question
Yeah.
regarding it. So, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I thought that if a tree is dead, it had to be removed.
I think that
There's,
ordinance.
the code kind of conflicts itself slightly. There's one area of the code that talks about a tree needs to be removed if it's a hazard, and I think that's the portion of the code Matt cited in that. But then there's another one that says, yeah, any dead
Because
tree should be removed,
The
yes.
city thought I had a tree that needed to be removed. It was not on my property, it was the edge of my property. There was nothing that tree it couldn't hit my house, couldn't hit my neighbor's house. But he had to remove that tree. He was told that tree's gotta come down. I saw the letter, I saw my letter. They were identical.
Yeah, I mean,
Have we changed the ordinance since then?
I guess, when did that occur, though? Because I've been here 8 years, and if that was before me, I'm not
It
sure.
was. And that's what I mean, did the ordinance change? But
One of the things that's a challenge, probably I would guess most of the dead trees in town are probably in the most indigent areas, I would imagine, in our oldest neighborhoods, and they're probably the tallest trees that are the most expensive to take down. And so I think we've tried to be savvy in how we enforce that, because if we go to a elderly woman on Social Security and say, you need to spend $8,000 to remove this tree, I'm not sure we're achieving what our goal is, I guess. But I mean, if you guys want us to do that, we could. But we haven't been doing that, I'll say.
I'm not saying that, Tim.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah.
if we have an ordinance, we can't, I mean, we can distinguish, well, this is, we're gonna,
Yeah.
we have to follow this ordinance if you live in this ward, but you don't have to follow the ordinance if you live in that ward.
well, I think,
I
I mean,
don't
the
get
to
that
the
either.
I
point.
think we're trying to, I would say we would try to do it if it's a hazard, but
Yeah, I mean, I think the ordinance could be cleaned up by saying
kind
if
of
it's a
conflicts.
hazard. I mean, if we already have, if it's a hazard in there. I mean, I've got 140 trees on my property. I'm sure there's a couple dead ones right in the middle, but they could fall on another tree and not bug anybody. And I'm not removing them. Well, I might if you send me a ticket, but I'm just saying, like, if it's a hazard, it makes sense, right? If it's putting somebody else in jeopardy.
That's the
You
point I'm trying to
also
make.
don't have a solid surface driveway, which is against code too.
Did you go by my house lately? Because the forms are in,
Yeah, they
so
are.
back off.
If we can show that if this tree falls, it's not gonna hit a tree, then okay. And to me, that's about the easiest way to settle this. Is to go out there, measure the tree.
Right, for that tree. Well,
Yeah,
where we're
that tree.
talking about is like future ordinance
I know,
changes
but-
too, yeah.
But that's the deal, is this tree hazardous or not?
Okay.
So, anyhow.
Okay, Marcus, anything but trees,
I can't.
please.
I can't top that, Mayor. It's hard for me to top that. But hey, Rob, thank you for coming in tonight. Ma'am, thank you. Thank you for coming in tonight. John Perry, thanks for coming in tonight. Present your piece. Tony, great job. I mean, yeah, that's a hard thing. You know, you're working with a lot of industrial engineers, and you're working with sewer, and you're talking to people and their property. It kind of puts you in a bad light. But the fact that the gentleman gave you compliments tonight because of your professionalism says all the reasons why you are city, you are our Lansing, you are our representative. And when I grow up, I want to be like you.
Give him a hug.
Wow.
Buy a Polaris.
And you didn't ask for more money.
That was a
Now,
lot
this is
of,
the one meeting, Kerry. You
a
didn't
lot of
ask for more
sugar
money.
on that. Jesse,
Ditto, what everybody else said except for Marcus about Tony, whatever. That's it.
Greg,
Yeah, same. Thanks for everybody coming in. We appreciate it. Yeah, I'd like to thank the champions of Lansing Education for hosting a meet and greet today with the candidates. It was great sitting down and listening to the residents' concerns and having some good conversations with them. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to participate. And Mayor, on this day in 1936, Jesse Owens won the 100-meter in the Berlin Olympics.
it's good.
With that, Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
I'll see if Don was here, we could ask him if he remembered that. Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
No.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Motion passed. We're adjourned.